The First Crusade should have been a disaster. Tens of thousands of mostly amateur soldiers marching over 2,500 miles to capture Jerusalem, one of the world's most fortified cities. Yet against all odds, they succeeded. Their victory wasn't just about faith, it was about clever strategy, gritty leadership, and adapting to chaos. This wasn't a simple religious quest, it was a masterclass in desperate, flexible thinking that changed history. To understand how, we need to look beyond the legends and into the real decisions and leaders that made the impossible happen. The First Crusade began not with dreams of Jerusalem or visions of distant holy cities, but with a crisis that struck at the very heart of Constantinople, the jewel of the Byzantine Empire. Emperor Alexios I Komnenos, facing disaster as the Seljuk Turks swept through Anatolia and threatened his capital, found himself with few options. His armies were depleted, his borders crumbling, and his people fearful for their future. In desperation, Alexios sent envoys westward, appealing to Pope Urban II for military aid. He hoped for a handful of skilled mercenaries to help him reclaim lost lands and restore stability. But Pope Urban saw a far greater opportunity. He envisioned uniting Europe's feuding knights under a single cause, strengthening his own authority, and channeling the violence of the age toward a holy mission. At the Council of Clermont in 1095, Urban called for a holy war to reclaim the Holy Land from Muslim control, promising forgiveness of sins and eternal salvation to all who took up the cross. The response was staggering. Tens of thousands, from armored knights to humble peasants, answered the call, far surpassing anything Alexios or the Pope had imagined. Instead of a small, disciplined force, a vast and unruly army began to assemble, marching eastward across Europe, driven by faith, hope, and the promise of adventure. The Pope's bold move transformed a regional emergency into a continent-wide movement, igniting passions and ambitions across Christendom. Religious fervor, the lure of land and riches, and the hope of spiritual redemption drew thousands from every corner of Europe, setting the stage for a campaign that would forever alter the destinies of both East and West. What began as Alexios' simple plea for help had unleashed a storm that would reshape the medieval world. Curiously, the First Crusade was not led by kings or crowned monarchs, as one might expect from such a grand and ambitious undertaking. Instead, the leaders were ambitious counts and dukes, powerful nobles who saw opportunity in the chaos of the age. Without a single supreme commander to unite them, these men were forced to govern by council, constantly debating, negotiating, and compromising at every turn. Among them, Godfrey of Bouillon, Raymond of Toulouse, and Bohemond of Taranto stood out, each bringing their own unique strengths, ambitions, and perhaps most importantly, rivalries to the table. Bohemond, a cunning Norman lord, was especially skilled in both battlefield strategy and political opportunism, always looking for ways to turn situations to his advantage. The constant push and pull between these leaders, though often messy and contentious, actually led to more creative and flexible decision-making than a single king might have allowed. Every major decision was the result of heated debate, with each noble fiercely defending his own interests, yet ultimately forced to find common ground for the sake of the crusade. Bohemond's prior experience fighting both the Byzantines and the Turks gave the Crusaders a crucial edge in battle, as he understood their tactics and weaknesses better than most. Unlike some of his peers, Bohemond was not driven by religious faith alone. He was motivated by a burning desire to carve out a kingdom for himself in the East. This ambition made him both ruthless and effective, allowing him to turn potential disasters into stunning victories at key moments in the campaign. The absence of kings created a unique environment where these ambitious nobles could shine, improvise, and adapt to the ever-changing challenges of the crusade. Their uneasy alliance, built on both rivalry and necessity, became the Crusade's secret weapon, proving that sometimes a council of rivals can achieve what a single ruler cannot. The journey to the Holy Land was a logistical nightmare. Thousands of people, no supply lines, and hostile territory. Keeping the army alive was itself a victory. Emperor Alexios, shocked by the size of the Crusader horde, rushed them across the Bosphorus and made them swear to return any reconquered lands. Once in Asia Minor, the Crusaders faced heat, thirst, and constant Turkish attacks. Many died, but those who survived became a hardened, disciplined force. Leaders organized foraging, water searches, and nightly fortified camps. The march weeded out the weak and forged a cohesive army. By the time they reached Nicaea, they were fewer, but far tougher. The ordeal had transformed chaos into a fighting force ready for siege and battle. Nicaea, capital of the Seljuk Sultanate, was the Crusaders' first major test. The Seljuk Sultan underestimated them, leaving only a garrison behind. The Crusaders launched a coordinated siege, surprising the defenders with their discipline and engineering. When the Sultan returned to break the siege, the Crusaders held firm and won their first major field victory. The city's lake kept it supplied, until the Byzantines, in a clever move, hauled boats overland to blockade it. Cut off, Nicaea surrendered to the Byzantines, not the Crusaders. The Crusaders were denied their loot, but the strategic goal was achieved. This victory proved they were more than a mob. They were a real army. The fall of Nicaea sent shockwaves through the region. The Crusaders had passed their first big test. After Nicaea, the Crusaders pressed on, but Antioch nearly destroyed them. The city's massive walls and long siege led to starvation, disease, and desertion. Morale collapsed, leaders argued, and hope faded. In desperation, Bohemond struck a secret deal with Firuz, a disaffected tower commander inside Antioch. Bohemond bargained for control of the city if he could deliver it. On a June night, Firuz let Bohemond's men in. They opened the gates, and the Crusaders stormed the city. The victory was brutal and sudden, achieved by betrayal, not brute force. Bohemond's cunning saved the crusade from disaster. The fall of Antioch was a turning point, but the Crusaders were immediately besieged themselves. Their greatest challenge was far from over. Survival now depended on faith as much as strategy. Trapped inside Antioch, starving and surrounded by Kerboga's massive army, the Crusaders seemed doomed. Then a pilgrim named Peter Bartholomew claimed to find the Holy Lance, supposedly the spear that pierced Christ. Whether real or staged, the discovery electrified the army. Morale soared. The Crusaders believed God was on their side. Leaders seized this moment, rallying the troops for a desperate attack. On June 28, 1098, the Crusaders charged out, outnumbered but filled with zeal. Kerboga's divided forces faltered. The Crusaders shattered his army. Against all odds, faith had become a weapon, turning despair into victory. The impossible had happened. The Crusaders had survived Antioch and broken their besiegers. Faith, real or manufactured, had changed the course of the war. After Antioch, the Crusaders finally marched on Jerusalem, their numbers drastically reduced. The city's defenses were formidable, and the Fatimid garrison had poisoned wells and stripped the land. For weeks, the Crusaders' attacks failed, morale plummeted. Then Genoese ships brought supplies and engineers, allowing the Crusaders to build siege towers. A priest's vision inspired a barefoot procession around the city, uniting the army. On July 13, 1099, the final assault began. Godfrey's tower reached the wall. His men opened a gate. The Crusaders poured in, unleashing a horrific massacre. After 3 years of hardship, Jerusalem was theirs, at a terrible cost. The crusade had reached its bloody climax. The capture of Jerusalem was the First Crusade's stunning finale, but in many ways, it was just the beginning of a much larger story. The world watched as a handful of determined crusaders, against all odds, carved out a new chapter in history. After the city fell, the Crusaders didn't simply celebrate and disperse. Instead, they established new states in the heart of the Holy Land, with Godfrey of Bouillon chosen as Jerusalem's first ruler, a leader who would set the tone for a fragile new kingdom surrounded by enemies. Their success was unique in medieval history, a rare blend of a clear, unifying goal, ambitious and charismatic leaders, and the good fortune of facing enemies divided by rivalry and internal strife. The Crusaders' ability to exploit these divisions was crucial. Above all, the First Crusade was a triumph of adaptive strategy. The Crusaders faced impossible odds, yet at every turn they found creative solutions, whether in battle, diplomacy, or survival. They managed complex logistics across hostile terrain, negotiated uneasy alliances with the Byzantines, engineered daring sieges, and wielded faith as both a weapon and a source of unity. Every challenge demanded a new approach. The First Crusade stands as a testament to what determined people can achieve with vision, adaptability, and ruthless ingenuity. Their journey was marked by hardship, but also by moments of extraordinary resolve. History isn't inevitable. It's shaped by those who adapt, who dare to make bold decisions, and who seize opportunities in the face of uncertainty. The legacy of the First Crusade is both inspiring and sobering. It reminds us that the choices of a few can echo for centuries, leaving marks that are still visible today. Ultimately, it's a powerful reminder that strategy, not just faith or brute force, can change the course of the world, shaping destinies in ways no one could have predicted. For more stories of strategy shaping history and the people who dared to dream beyond the possible, follow us for the next deep dive.